Hi guys, we're on our last new topic of this chapter. That means this will be our last new video. Before we learn today, I wanted to just really quickly remind you that this week we learned two different ways to write a quadratic function. We learned about standard form, which is the one you probably already knew. And then our brand new one that we learned just a couple days ago was vertex form. For today's lesson, we're going to learn how to change something into vertex form given standard form. So take standard form and create vertex form. Here is our first example. When you're converting something from standard form to vertex form, you're going to have to do the process of completing the square. Now, prior to this video, I posted our video from before winter break of how to do solving by completing the square, just as a refresher. So if you need to refresh yourself on how to solve by completing the square, you should go back and watch that video. In today's completing the square, it's going to be very similar to that video. There's going to be two things that are a little bit different. One of them is that we have y equals instead of 0 equals. So that's going to change our process just a teeny tiny bit. And then the other thing that's going to make these problems just a little bit trickier is that we have this number in front of the x squared. And we've never really done a problem with the number in front of the x squared. So I'll talk to you in the video right now about how to deal with that. All right, so in the process of completing the square, the first thing we're supposed to do is we want to free up this third spot in the trinomial. So we're going to take our constant and we're going to move it to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 12 to the other side of the equal sign. Now I can't do y minus 12. It's got to just stay the subtraction problem, right? So keep it y minus 12. And then before we put in our blank space over here, where we will actually do the completing the square, I need to get rid of this 3 in front of the x squared, because I can't do completing the square with a number in front of my x squared. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to factor out the letter a, which is that number 3. Now we are only factoring out the number 3. We're not doing a GCF, so we're not going to take out the letter x. We're only going to take out the number 3. After you have factored out your number 3 from the right-hand side, now we are ready to put in our blank spaces. We have one blank space on the right-hand side inside of the parentheses, and that's where we're going to do the actual completing the square. And then whatever I do on the right side, I have to do on the left side as well. So I did also put a blank space on the left side. Notice that the 6 turned into a 2 because we took out the 3, but I still have an x squared and an x. That's important for completing the square. It's got to be this, we're trying to create that perfect square trinomial. All right, so I'm going to really quickly go through what review from the before winter break, right? What was posted in that first video. So in the first video, we did x times 2 times blank equals 2x. We put a 1 here, and then we squared that and put that up here. So if you're used to this process and you don't want to write down that step, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and skip straight to the factored version. So the factored version is x plus 1 squared. This 1 is half of this 2, okay? This 1 is half of that 2. And then I am going to take this 1 and I'm going to square it, and that's what goes up here. So remember that this number is the blank space down here squared. All right. So now here's where another part where it gets a little bit tricky. So in this blank space, it looks like I added a 1, but in reality, I did not add a 1 because this 3 outside this parentheses, it's like being distributed to the entire parentheses. So that means that I actually technically added a 3 to the right-hand side of this problem. So when you have a number out here in front of the parentheses, You need to multiply your inside number times your outside number before you write it on the left-hand side. So I just kind of followed the arrows. I did 1 times 3 equals 3. And so I'm going to write a 3 over here. So these two blank spaces are not necessarily going to be matching. Okay, we're almost there. So I have already factored my parentheses. X squared plus 2x plus 1 turns into x plus 1 squared. On the left side, I'm going to combine like terms. So negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9. And then I don't want to forget my letter A. This number 3 needs to be in front of the parentheses. As a final step, I do want this number to be after the parentheses. So I'm going to add this 9 over here to the end of the problem. And then this is my final answer. This is the vertex form for this standard form. Both of these equations, when you graph them, would give you the same parabola. Whew, that was a lot of information, guys. Let's do one more together just to make sure we understand this. And then if you still need extra help, we can work on it some more Monday in class. So here's our second example. The first thing I'm noticing when I see this example is that the order is not correct. We are supposed to have the x squared first and the x second. So you do want to switch that order around. Now this problem does not have a constant, so I'm going to skip the step where I would normally move the constant to the other side. My next step is to factor out my letter A. In this problem, my letter A is negative 2. So make sure that you're taking this 12 and dividing it by a negative 2, turning it into a negative 6. If your letter A is negative, then your second number will change signs. Once you have factored out your letter A, you're now ready to put in your blank spaces and to complete the square. We will be completing the square on the right-hand side of the problem where the x squared minus 6x plus blank is. I'm going to go straight to my factored form, which is x minus 3 squared. The minus 3 is half of the minus 6. Then I will do 3 squared is 9. 3 squared is 9. And then we learned this brand new today. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. Okay. All right. Now I don't have a constant on this side to combine the negative 18 with, so I'm just going to leave that y minus 18. And then don't forget to drop down your letter A right here, so that negative 2 still needs to be in front of the parentheses. And as a final step, I'll take this negative 18 and I will add it to the other side and just stick it right at the end of the problem. And this is vertex form. This concludes all of our lessons for this chapter. Next week, we'll have another quick quiz and we'll do a lot of review to prepare for our test.